We'll go back to Normal Island, where the last couple of weeks or couple of days we look at the most normal stories in the most normal country. Now, first up, we have Angela Rayner receiving sexism from the Daily Mail for having legs. Now, the Daily Mail compared Angela Rayner to the scene from Basic Instinct, but all Rayner did was wear a skirt. A Tory MP made the comment that she crossed and uncrossed her legs to distract Boris Johnson. Now, someone called up LBC, of course the bastion of the most normal conversations, and compared Angela Rayner to a prostitute. Take a look.
I just think you're forgetting about human nature and Basic Instincts, which Sharon Stone's film was called. I mean, why did she have to sit in front of him and cross her leg herself? It's like being a prostitute.
Sorry. In what way has she flaunted her? In what way has she flaunted herself?
That? To be exercising a little bit more decorum. The male and females, they flaunt themselves.
But what is she meant to do?
Wear sensible clothes and not.
But no one's suggesting she hasn't.
But she was. I've seen the picture. I've got the Daily Mail and I just laughed and turned the page over, trying to distract him from saying something sensible, because we all know that he likes the ladies and he expresses it more than most people. And I just think you're just so stupid for falling for her rubbish.
Now, I think we can guess the person that called up LBC was a little bit on the older side and very, very old-fashioned. But the idea that women have to change their behaviour because boys will be boys is so archaic, outdated and misogynistic. What should happen? Men should change their behaviour and keep themselves under control. The Mail put out another front page, "No, Mr. Speaker," as they defend their headline on the grounds of free press. Our media are owned by a handful of billionaires. That's not exactly free press. This story is just unbelievably creepy. Now, speaking of creepy, a Tory MP has been caught watching porn in the House of Commons. The Conservative Party's chief whip has ordered an investigation into allegations a Tory MP watched porn on his phone in the Commons chamber. A Downing Street spokesman said alleged behaviour was wholly unacceptable, but he denied the party had an issue with misogyny. It goes without saying that the party does have a problem with misogyny when half of the Tories are just creepy fucks. Moving on, we have the elections bill that is just being passed in the House of Lords. What does this mean? The Electoral Commission is no longer independent, meaning that unamended elections bill could now give ministers new and unchecked powers over the elections regulator, undermining free and fair elections in the UK. Now, around about the same time, the Police Crime Courts and Sentencing Bill also passed, which essentially outlaws protests. The police will have unrestricted powers to stop protests that are deemed too noisy. Now, I don't know about you, but the whole point of protests are to disrupt and be noisy. Yet this legislation, by design, is to try and silence those against power. A coalition of UK organisation called the Police Bill Alliance put out a statement. Today is a dark day for democracy. Despite over a year of relentless opposition from MPs, campaigners and many lords, the government today passed measures that will undermine everybody's right to protest and criminalise the way of life of gypsy and traveller communities. Police will now have the unprecedented power to impose noise-based restrictions on protests, the power to impose large fines and jail sentences on anyone who strays from conditions imposed on a protest, and criminalise gypsy, traveller and nomadic families who have no place to stop and rest. It's cruel to use the full strength of the law to tell people where they can't go, but offer nowhere they can go. This is an anti-democratic bill and will continue to defend and promote democracy. Now, this is a deeply, deeply authoritarian move from the government. Now, much of the last few years of Corbyn's leadership has been marred with controversy surrounding anti-Semitism. This also goes for the wider left as a whole, and in which there has been an internal debate, or rather splits and aggravation against each other. There are some parts of the left who, in my opinion, shot down accusations of anti-Semitism because they believed it was a smear. This sometimes led to a blind spot of anti-Semitism. However, on the other side, There are those that accepted the narrative around anti-Semitism, and the left believe that if we just apologise for the entirety of it, then we could just move on, that we would get the approval of our political opponents and get on with trying to get Corbyn elected. Now, we know that wasn't the case. If anything, it ramped up the anti-Semitism crisis. Well, actress Tracy Ann Oberman has been forced to apologise and pay damages after losing the case against historian and the Northern Independence Party leader Philip Proudfoot for falsely accusing him of anti-Semitism. In a now deleted tweet, she wrote, "So a man called Philip Proudfoot of Free the North Now has a due block list. I've been out of the Twitter politics loop for a few months, but is this party continuation of Corbyn? Seems like it. And will it end up the same? Seems like it. Good luck all." Now, Oberman issued a statement on Twitter in which she apologised for her comments, admitted that she made a mistake, and she said she has agreed to pay damages. On the 4th of April 2021, I tweeted that Dr. Philip Proudfoot has a Jewish block list. She then wrote, "The following day, Dr. Proudfoot explained this was wrong and that he had used a tool to mass block an account I followed that was involved in targeted trolling, which also blocks followers." What we're now seeing is a vindication of some parts of the left in which we rightly said anti-Semitism exists, but it isn't all a smear. But at the same time, Jeremy Corbyn isn't going to fucking bring back concentration camps. This is another in a series of legal cases by those on the left of being falsely accused of anti-Semitism. Now, Laura Murray, a former aide to Corbyn, received £40,000 worth of damages and an apology from The Telegraph after they smeared her as an anti-Jewish racist and part of the vile anti-Semitism of Corbyn's Labour. The man behind the smear was none other than former Labour MP and current independent peer Ian Austin, who has also apologised. Now, Ian Austin quit Labour over anti-Semitism within the party and told voters to back Boris Johnson at the 2019 general election. Just says what kind of man he is. Now, finally, I'm going to leave you on some truly good news. Unite have secured a 14% pay rise for CHEP workers, and it is the longest strike in the union's history. The workers will receive a 9% pay increase, which on average is worth £2,500. Other elements of the deal, including a £1,000 lump sum and 3 extra days of annual leave this year. This means that the total package is worth as much as 14%, while real inflation runs at 9%. Unite General Secretary Sharon Graham said, "I'm very proud of Unite reps and members at CHEP. This was a tough dispute, but the workers stood their ground and won an excellent deal. The workers knew that the company could afford a fair wage, so they kept up the fight and they won." That's all we have this week. Remember to like this video and give it a share. We're also on Instagram and TikTok, so check us out there. And finally, please subscribe to Turn Left and tune in next week for more Normal Ireland.